Prince Handley coming to you with 100,000 watts of pure, healing, miracle-working love. I want to talk to you today about the prophetic calendar for Israel and the Goyim, the nations of the world, for the next decade from 2014 through 2023. Watch for these events. Let me give you a little description of what I'm going to talk to you about. If you are Jewish and if you live in Israel, here are specific events to watch for. These events are actually signs pre-recorded in the Tanakh to alert you, number one, to let you know how and by what means your enemies will deceive you, and number two, to prepare you for the coming of Mashiach to Israel to establish his kingdom. If you're not Jewish and if you do not live in Israel, then you better for sure watch. So again, we're going to talk to you today about the prophetic calendar for Israel and the Goyim, or the nations of the world, for the next decade from 2014 through 2023. Watch for these events. Watch for new developments of international law from United Nations and the world government in association with the International Criminal Court, with possible warrants for the arrest of Israeli political and military leaders. These will also work concomitantly with pressure on Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, to go along with West Bank concession to Abbas and the Palestinians. This is a ploy endorsed secretly by President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry for the deadline of the signing of the agreement by April 29, 2014. That's the deadline that has been chosen by Secretary of State Kerry. Watch for the expansion of the global homosexual lesbian agenda, fulfilling the prophecy of Yeshua concerning conditions on planet Earth before the appearing of Mashiach. You can read that in the Brit Hadashah or in the New Testament, where Yeshua or Jesus said, "As it was in the days of Lot, so shall it be in the days of the appearing of the Son of Man." You can read the account of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and God's displeasure on homosexuality in the Torah in Genesis chapter 19. Watch for civil and military strife in the confines of the Euphrates River, Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. World War III will ultimately, in the future, emerge from this area. That will be the sixth trumpet of Revelation chapter 9. You can read verses 13 to 21 specifically. 1/3 of the world's population will be killed as a result of this war. This will not affect Israel right now, but it will in the future. Watch for the loss of critical alliance of the United States and its leadership in helping Israel. Unless the political landscape changes drastically in the United States, Israel will be hung out to dry. Only a miracle from God can change the current political climate in the USA and cause her to again be a real supporter of Israel. Watch for more control over the minds of youth in the countries outside of and opposed to Israel. This is not just in the Palestinian camp where young people are taught to hate Jews. This is happening in Germany, in the United States, and other Western camp countries influential in global politics and ideology. Germany, the enabler of Nazism, hates homeschooling. In the USA, the Obama administration wants to eliminate homeschooling, to require all students to be in public overview so they can be taught worldview without religious contradiction. That is, tolerance and political correctness. The political, psychological, and sociological pressures on Israel and the Jewish people in 10 more years, if not less, will be exacerbated. I want to give you an editor's note. The false Messiah, the anti-Messiah, or the beast, the Antichrist, like Hitler, knows he must control the minds of youth in order to accomplish global domination. The Antichrist worldview must be taught in public, government-controlled school systems globally. The government must control the school systems for the world dictator to rule without opposition, politically, financially, through entitlements and purchased votes via unions, and ideologically. Watch for a peace accord signed by April 29th of 2014. USA President Obama and Secretary of State John Kerry are pushing for a Middle East peace agreement to be signed between Israel and the Palestinians by April 29th. This may or may not happen. However, if it does happen, and if it is the 7-year covenant spoken of by Daniel the prophet, then the 6th trumpet of Revelation may occur during the first 3.5 years after signing. Why? The 6th trumpet marks the beginning of the Euphrates conflict. Read Revelation chapter 9, verses 14 to 15. The Euphrates conflict will explode into World War III, with 1/3 of the human population being killed. This will make a perfect backdrop and a stage for the Antichrist to rise to power with his promise of world peace. Watch for a future 7-year peace accord that is prophesied and definite. The peace accord designed by Obamacare may or may not be the 7-year covenant which Daniel the prophet spoke about in Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. However, the new world leader, the false Mashiach, the anti-Messiah, or the Antichrist, will probably rise to power as a result of the Euphrates conflict, and he will make a 7-year covenant, the one prophesied by Daniel, between Israel and the Palestinians. We know that 3.5 years after a 7-year peace treaty is signed, that the false Messiah will go into the Jewish temple and proclaim that he is God. After the prophesied 7-year covenant is signed, may not be in 2014, there will be 2 distinct periods of 42 months, or 3.5 years. The Jews will be allowed to rebuild their temple on the Temple Mount. In the middle of the 7 years, at the end of the first half, the world leader, the beast or the anti-Messiah, will order the Jews to stop the animal sacrifices, and he will go into the temple and commit an abomination. He will proclaim that he is God and or the Mashiach. You can read about this in the Tanakh, in the book of Daniel, in the Old Testament, chapter 8, verses 9 to 14, in Daniel 9, verse 27, and in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, or New Covenant, in the book of Revelation, chapter 11, verse 2, and in Revelation chapter 13, verse 5, also in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. All these references are listed in the show notes of the podcast. I want to give you an editor's note right at this section. Be aware that in the middle, right in between the events that I describe happening for the next decade, 2014 through 2023, the following events may also happen. Number 1, a Middle East war that will place Israel in control of the whole Middle East. A war between Israel and probably all of the Middle East will happen. Not just bordering Arab states like Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. Israel will fly down upon the shoulder of the Philistines or the Palestinians to the west. In context, Israel will strike against Egypt and Iraq, which is older as Syria, and plunder the people of the east. Israel will control these nations, and evidently their wealth as a result of the plundering. Lexicographically, the people of the East include the Arab nations of Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, and others. Notice that most prophecy teachers do not cover this, as it is not general enough to protect them. They may make a partial allusion to this conflict by reference to Psalm 83 with some expanded hyperbole. Number 2, the Ezekiel 38 conflict. See what Ezekiel is saying to us today. Russia, Turkey, Iran, and other Middle East and Northeast African nations will form an alliance to attack Israel. This we know for sure. But realize, listen to me carefully, realize that before the Lord wipes out the Magog alliance on the hills of Israel that we read about in Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39, there is an attack planned upon Israel by Iran. This is evident by Iranian posture and declarations, by intel, and by present geopolitical climate. This attack by Iran is imminent unless Israel wipes out the threat. Number 3, an unexpected attack upon the USA or Israel by Asian or East powers. In the last days, we know that there will be a major military, political, and economic force that arises from the East. This could include present-day Iraq, Syria, eastern Turkey, the southern steppes of Russia, in other words, from the former USSR, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, or North Korea. This force may be an amalgamation of national and cultural social interests flowing together for advancement, protection, control, and power. And then number 4, another thing that could happen in between prophecy for the decade, cosmic signs, the red blood moons, and other signs associated with the Jewish feasts and holidays. I'll name 4 of these: the red blood moons during Passover, April 15, 2014, the Feast of Tabernacles, October 8, 2014, the Passover on April 4th, 2015, and the 4th red blood moon during the Feast of Tabernacles, September 28, 2015. And number 5, judgment upon Egypt with the Nile River drying up. 3 places in the Tanakh, or the Old Testament, Scriptures speak of the Nile River being dried up because of judgment from the Lord. This has not happened yet. You can look at Isaiah chapter 19, verse 5, Ezekiel chapter 30, verse 12, and Zechariah chapter 10, verse 11. So this is something that has to come to pass. It has not happened yet. Now let's go on with other things to watch for during this decade. Watch for equalization of the nations of the world with unequal wealth distribution. While Marxists and socialists like Obama propagate wealth distribution, the truth is that they, the ones who promote the concept, are on the wealth gleaning side of the equation. Let me tell you a fact. 83 members of Communist China's National People's Congress, the NPC, are billionaires in terms of U.S. dollars. That's right, 83 of them. Ask Barack and Michelle Obama what percentage of their income they give to charity. The poorer and less educated populace in socialist-dominated countries are coerced, propagandized, or bought off in a trade-off of votes for handouts or entitlements. Watch for global equalization to facilitate one-world government prophesied by the Scriptures. Just as global one-world religion and global one-world economic system are necessary for control of the populace, so is global one-world government. World domination is contingent upon the evolution or formation of a global elite sector, a small group of people, extremely wealthy and powerful, who control the political and economic sectors. You can read about such control in the book of Revelation chapter 18, and notice that there are at least 21 specific literal commodities listed. Study my teachings on Babylon, the Enemy of Israel Exposed, Part 1, and Babylon, the Enemy of Israel Exposed, Part 2. I have placed links for these teachings in the show note of the podcast. Watch for the international cooperation for a superbank that controls all central banks. Several synonyms of banking powers, such as GFC, FSB, G-SIB, BIS, and OPMF, are all interconnected in this control. And I have placed detailed notes about these in the show notes of the podcast. Talk about inflation? You haven't seen anything yet. The global financial crisis, which really started in 2007 but became very manifest in 2008, will pale in comparison to what you see happen next. This conglomeration of banking, the international cooperation for a superbank, that is, that controls all central banks, will produce a windfall of false money. Money that is stolen from the public, from you, resulting in a cycle of endless and greater financial controls that will prepare the way for the mark of the beast, 666. Let me give you an editor's note. A one-world currency is not necessary for the new global economy prophesied by the Holy Bible. Only global financial control is necessary. Also, do not put long-range trust in gold that may have worked in the past, because it may be regulated in the future. Put your trust in the God of Israel. Watch for hyperinflation or stagflation, which will create economic havoc for most of the population. Recent gains in the stock market, the Dow at 17,000, create a false sense of security among investors. As their money loses value due to government printing false money, in other words, increasing money supply or what is called quantitative easing, prices go up, and so do stocks. But the money goes down in value. The stock market is not gaining value. Our money is losing value. The economy is about to fall apart. The Federal Reserve Board knows this. The Fed is simply propping up the economy by quantitative easing and low interest rates. The new head of the Fed, Janet Yellen, is in complete agreement with the Obama strategy of injecting more than $3 trillion of stimulus funds into the economy. That has already been done. Let me give you an editor's note. While I was in graduate school, I worked for the Federal Reserve Bank twice. There was no privacy then, and that was years ago, so please don't think that there is privacy now or will be in the future. Watch for technology and super science. The development of the world's fastest Wi-Fi is in Israel right now. A firm named Willow City, located in Caesarea, Israel, on the Mediterranean coast, is delivering the world's first multi-gigabit wireless chipsets based on the new WiGig 60 gigahertz standards for super high-speed downloads, docking, networking, and high-definition video at over 10 times today's typical Wi-Fi transmission rates, almost 25 times faster than the highest home internet speeds. You can download a 2-hour HD movie in just over 2 minutes. You can run 14 interconnected devices simultaneously, or you can download 10 songs in 1.5 seconds. The potential to propagate the good news of Messiah and the word of the Lord globally is exponentially increasing in these last days. It reminds me of what the messenger of the Lord told Daniel the prophet. You can read this in Tanakh, in the book of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 4, where it says, "But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase." Now let me jump ahead a moment and tell you what to watch for probably after the next decade. A key end-time geopolitical scenario. This is just a little bonus. 10 national leaders, heads of governments, will rise during the same time period. These 10 world leaders will receive power during the same time period as the coming world leader, the beast. The 10 leaders will have one mind. They will give their power and strength unto the false Messiah, the Antichrist, or the beast. These 10 world leaders will have power on earth, but they are not from the earth. They are extraterrestrial creatures. How do we know? Revelation 17, verse 14 says, "These shall," in other words, at the very end of the last 3.5 years, "make war with the Lamb." The Lamb is Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah, who will come to deliver Israel at the Battle of Armageddon. My friend, no earthly king, no human leader could oppose the Messiah when he returns. Only stupid demonic beings of the spirit world who follow Satan would attempt such an act. So what's the answer to everything I've told you about? The prophetic calendar for the next decade, and a little beyond, the bonus that I just mentioned. The answer? Make sure you know the Messiah. Do not wait, my friend, until the spirit of deception prophesied in the Holy Bible overtakes you and you can no longer be saved. Pray this prayer right now. I'm going to place a prayer in the show notes of this podcast. I want you to pray this prayer. Here it is. You can pray it with me right now. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, please reveal to me if Yeshua, Jesus, is my Messiah. If so, I ask him to take control of my life, to be my Lord, and save me. Please forgive my sins, and help me to live for you, and take me to heaven when I die. If you prayed that prayer, my friend, email me and let me know. The email address is at the end of the podcast in the show notes. There's also an address where you can write by regular postal mail. I want to send you some literature to help you in your growth with the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This has been your friend, Prince Handley, coming to you with 100,000 watts of pure, healing, miracle-working love. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. And my friend, if you feel the Lord would like you to help me deliver the message of good news to Israel and the world, I've placed a link in the show notes of this podcast where you can donate. We'll send you a tax-deductible receipt for your gift to my nonprofit corporation. Thanks for all of you that can support us financially, and especially to those of you who pray for me. I do not take it for granted. The Lord bless and prosper you, and open great doors for you to release the power, the love, and the miracles of God into the world. Also, if you'll go to the show notes of this podcast, you'll find footnotes providing details of lots of the information that I discussed during this podcast. Resource materials, references, explanations, and specific commentary. Be blessed, my friend, and don't forget, tell somebody how good God is today.